Welcome to waveSharp 3. This is the latest version of the free image sharpening software. And today I'm going to show you some high-level overview of some of the new capabilities and features in waveSharp 3. I'm going to show it on a Jupyter image. So with no further ado, let's get started. I've got my Jupyter image already opened in waveSharp 3, and you can see here the region of interest is showing around the edge of Jupyter already. That opens up by default. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is show you some of the file action capabilities in waveSharp 3. So I'm going to click on this tab here that says File Actions. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to rotate the image because I like to have my Jupyter images showing kind of laterally when it has the bands on the planet's surface. So I just clicked on here, rotate image by 90. You see it went ahead and did that. But I can refine this by clicking on the mouse wheel. I'm going to click down on the mouse wheel. And you can see I'm just going to rotate it just a little bit more to make those bands horizontal. So it's just kind of a preference of mine. So we've done that. And I'm going to go back to the processing tab in waveSharp 3. And some of the capabilities we have here are around the convolve, colors, and filter settings. I'm going to go ahead and select the convolution style of LRGB. And then I'm going to also go ahead and click off chroma-denoise here. This is a denoise filter that's associated with this LRGB setting that you'll see in a few moments. Now, one of the cool things that's been added in waveSharp 3 is the ability to estimate a sharpen filter. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to slide the sharpen filter for the first layer all the way over to the right. The middle one, I'll set it about halfway. And then the third layer here, let's set it to around about 50. And you'll notice in waveSharp 3 here that the numbers have increased from the previous version. So you can go all the way up to 200 now in the layer settings. And you can see already my image has begun to sharpen. I'm going to now click on the estimate filter here. And you can see here, it gives a message here saying my ROI is fairly big. I'm going to click on yes. And you can see here that these buttons here at the top here, as the Python program is running, it kind of gives a status of the sharpening process. And then once that's completed, it's running through the 3 layers. And then once that's completed, it's actually going to give me a starting point for a sharpened filter. Now, in the past, sometimes you've had to kind of guess this value here, but waveSharp 3 is doing that work for you. Again, this is kind of a starting point for what your sharpened filter could be. You can adjust these after the fact. You can see now I've started to bring out some nice details in my Jupyter image. Admittedly, when I did this capture of Jupyter, the seeing was quite average. So it's not going to be sort of like a superb view that you'll see in the end result. I just want to call that out. Now I'm going to go ahead and click on the zoom window here and zoom in just a little bit so you can see some of the impacts of the steps that I undertake. One of the new capabilities in waveSharp 3 is there's a little button here where I can actually click here and I can actually zoom in on the actual image itself here. You see here, look, as I zoom in. So that's kind of a nice capability that's been added to waveSharp 3. So I'm going to go ahead and uncheck that. And so after I've done my my sharpening, one thing that I call out here is the ability to run this chroma-denoise. So I'm going to kind of increase this just a little bit. And the setting, it's a very subtle look in terms of this denoise. And I encourage you to play around with this for yourself. I'm just going to show you. I'm set it to 4 here. But again, please play around with this yourselves. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to go into the histogram. And one of the cool things in waveSharp 3 is the ability in the histogram that I actually can do some calculations and estimates. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do auto recalc. And then I'm going to check ROI here, since I'm actually got an ROI view. And then I'm also on the threshold, I'm going to click auto here. Now what this does is if I click on show, it actually does a threshold mask where it's now going to estimate some of the color balance or the RGB balancer for me. So the first thing I'll do is I'm going to slide this luminance slider. I like to take it to around 55,000 here, not too high to blow out details. And then the saturation, I'm taking around the setting here around 45,000. And then also for the vibrance setting, I'm going to increase that about midway between the two. A lot of this is sort of personal preference, but you can see here in waveSharp 3, having this ability to do the automatic threshold setting is super helpful. Again, you can play around with your own settings yourself. So I'm going to go ahead and minimize that. Now, the next thing that I'm going to show is the denoise window here. And so right now you can see that even though the setting is set to on, if I click and toggle, there's no impact there at all. That's because I can now select which layers I want to do the denoise on. So I'm going to do, since I selected in my sharpening all 3 layers, I'm going to do here, I'm going to do post all layers. And you can see here how it's automatically calculated some of the denoise for me. And again, you can play around with these settings yourself, but it's kind of handy to have this automatic capability on setting the denoise level for you. And if I toggle off, you can see the noise subtly comes back in. So I'm going to leave that on. And then the next thing I want to do is, you notice that there's a kind of a rind effect around Jupiter here. Let me just zoom in here so you can see that a little better. This rind effects. And it's not unusual to get this when you're imaging the planets. And so what I'm going to do is, similar to waveSharp 2, there is a de-rind tool. Now, there are other techniques you can use to kind of reduce this de-rind, whether you use tools like Photoshop, GIMP, or Affinity to do that. But I'm going to show you this capability in waveSharp 3. So the first thing I'll do is I'm going to click on Active. And you can see already there's some kind of impact on that rinding effect in Jupiter. And if I click on Show in the mask, you can see that there's actually a mask has been applied to Jupiter. Now, I'm going to reduce this because what I'd like to do is for the mask to kind of start just as the edge of the planet starts. So I'm going to hold down the Shift button on my keyboard and then scroll down on the mouse. And you can see as I do that, this mask is moving out a little bit. So I'm going to take it as far as just where the planet edge starts. So let's say round about here. And then the next thing I want to do is I'm going to increase the feather setting to about 1.5, usually is about where I go on this one. And then there is a smoothing capability in the de-rind tool. I'm going to increase this just a little bit. You can see what happens when I do that. Now, if I check off show here, and then I'm going to click on active and deactive, you can see we've actually had a nice effect on that rind. What's interesting though is if I click on unactive, you notice that the rind, it's not all the way around the planet. It's only sort of like starts around here and then goes to sort of like this bottom region here. So similar to waveSharp 2, I can also go in, click on show and active, and actually I can increase the gap and only impact that de-rind on a certain part of the planet. So let's go ahead and make that gap around here. And then I'm going to move this mask around to where I saw that rind effect. Now, again, this is not necessarily something new in waveSharp 3. We did have this capability in waveSharp 2, but I want to show you anyway as part of the overall workflow. So I'm now going to click on unshow. And now you can see if I do deactivate and activate, I'm only impacting that region of the planet. So that's kind of a nice capability to have. What we do have that's new in waveSharp 3, we have this curve capability. And so I'm going to click on here and set a preset of linear. So I've got active, manual, and linear. And watch what happens when I change these curve functions here. You'll see a darkening effect take place. So this tool is actually, just as in other imaging tools, it's a great way to adjust the contrast in the planet. So I'm going to very subtly increase these areas here, and I've decreased there. And look what happens when I toggle active and active back on. It's a very subtle effect, but it does improve the image, in my opinion, quite a bit. The last part in waveSharp 3 is this basically this capability that is a tool setting here. So this is what I clicked on just here to bring up these options. And there's a deconvolve tool. So if I click on active here, this is a nice way to kind of sharpen up your image a little bit, where maybe the denoise maybe softened the image a little bit too much. So I'm going to go on here. I'm going to scroll up on my mouse wheel, and you can see here, look, the very subtle change, the very subtle sharpening effect that's taken place here. I'm going to back off just a little bit. Let's take it to around 8, and let me toggle active, off and on. See, a very subtle sharpening effect. So I definitely encourage you to take a look at waveSharp 3. I put the link to the download in the description for this video, and there's lots more capabilities you can play around with, and I'll put together some more videos to show those in the future. Please subscribe to my channel, and thank you very much for your time.